3,000 Years of Longing is a new George Miller film, his first movie in 7 years. And it essentially follows Tilda Swinton, who plays this character that has a bit of a mental struggle going on. She is imagining things, seeing things, really hallucinations if you're looking for a more specific and medical term for it. Yada yada yada. Eventually she buys this bottle that she finds has a genie inside it, a djinn to be specific, who's played by Idris Elba. And the djinn offers her 3 wishes, as any genie coming out of a bottle would. And not to really be too specific or give anything away, but she's not exactly too into this idea of just giving out 3 wishes already. She kind of wants to know more about what's going on, how all this came to be and stuff. And that's kind of where all the Aladdin comparisons have come from. I'm sure some of you may have heard about that, how like, oh, it's Aladdin for adults. Now, first of all, Aladdin is a movie that can be enjoyed by anyone, age 0 to up. It's universally beloved, alright? So miss me with that shit, first of all. And second, that's basically the only Aladdin comparison I could find with this, especially since those 2 characters are really taking up a majority of the screen time, just scenes with them too. And yeah, in terms of the plot, there's nothing about it as well relating to Aladdin, so just ignore all of that, any of that stuff you're hearing about it being like Aladdin. It's really not very similar. I really like George Miller as a director. He's shown a lot of versatility in the past. His most recent movie, Mad Max Fury Road, was an insane action movie, super just visually stunning. Simultaneously, he's one of the few directors I can think of where, at least with live action movies, I can tell that it's him behind the camera without knowing that he directed it. He has a very distinct visual style with his direction, with the way that he helms the camera, the way the camera moves around. It's almost like the camera is a character in its own way. And I feel like with this film, most notably with the scenes that are flashbacks, where, because part of the plot is that Jin is telling these stories of different times when he was outside of the bottle, how he got to get back in the bottle, like what happened, what led to those events. And in these flashback scenes, the camera does some very interesting stuff, and even at times it looks like the frame rate is changing in the midst of the scene. It looks like it might be sped up slightly, but then it comes back to the normal rate. I don't know what was going through his mind with that, George Miller's mind, but it's pretty freaking cool to see, I gotta say. So yeah, if you can't tell, I was super won over with the direction, with the visuals in this movie, the technical filmmaking. It was pretty much all there for me. I was all very satisfied with that. Admittedly though, the structure of this film and the format that it fits under was something that took me a little bit getting used to. It is essentially, like I said, the djinn is just telling these various different stories for a good amount of it. I wouldn't say the whole movie, about the first 2 acts or so are like this. And this is not a style that I'm typically a huge fan of when, like, this is just coming to my mind randomly, but a movie like Atomic Blonde, where basically everything that happens is just this story that Charlize Theron is telling. I just can't help but feel like that's a bit anticlimactic, not very exciting. So for the first act, while the movie was kind of going through the motions with this style, I was a little bit on the fence with it. I didn't really know how to feel about it, but I do think it got infinitely more enjoyable for me around the middle point of the film. And once again, just the filmmaking itself really did help with that, the visuals, and you know, all these stories that he's telling are going back thousands of years, so we get some really cool costumes and cool production design that really put you back in those times, in those time periods. I mentioned earlier that Tilda Swinton and Idris Elba are pretty much the only 2 main actors in this movie. Of course, there are a bunch of other actors in all these flashback scenes and stuff, but they are undoubtedly the 2 stars of this film. And I thought they did a really great job. Any scene that they were both in, when they were both acting to each other, they worked very well together, great chemistry. But this was also something that did take me a little bit getting used to, which is the relationship that is developed with these two. It's very abrupt from my point of view. It kind of just comes out of nowhere, like sort of once he's done telling these stories, she just likes him all of a sudden. I didn't really buy into it that much, but it did get a little bit better for me as the film lingered more on this relationship and sort of goes back to her normal life back in her hometown. Like, okay, I can kind of buy into this a little more. It is kind of cute. I didn't think I was gonna like this movie. From the marketing that I saw prior to it, it was made out to look like a comedy, and it's definitely not a comedy. There are of course comedic moments, a couple. It's hard to see a new movie that doesn't have any of those, but it just had a lot more substance to it than I thought it would. Of course, there are moments of it that are slow, and I don't think it's quite as stitched and weaved together as well as it possibly could have been. I would be interested to see what else comes out of this, if there is. I don't know if there's going to be, if this will be a franchise. Probably not, most likely, but I would just be curious to see anything else involving the Jinn, because it's a cool lore and they're cool characters, and I'd just be curious to learn more about those types of species, I guess. Feeling an 8.0 out of 10 on this. It was a good experience, and I could also strangely see this adapting well into a stage play. Not necessarily a musical, but like a theatrical production on this, I think could work very well. Get on that. Anyone that's like involved with those things, like, go ahead and get on that. Come on, let's get it. As always, I do want to know what you guys think about this movie as well. I'm always interested to hear other thoughts and opinions. And that's all I got for you guys. I don't really know what else to say, so I'm just gonna stop the video now. Peace out.